Good morning, dolls, and welcome to Little Gretchen's workshop. So today I have a few updates for Miss Betty's new kitchen. Now these are the two curtain panels I've already pre-created to be hung today. So I want to share with you dolls a couple ideas I was thinking about for workspace. Now this is a lovely table that was gifted and I've already previously stained it. And I also want to play with this cabinet to see what I can do with it to make it work as well. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and hang the curtains and kind of get a feel for things. Now, these are the two panels. Now, dolls, these curtains are very simple. I'm not using any rods or brackets or anything. I'm going to glue them directly to the window frame. Now, if it was a room more formal than the kitchen, I may do something more elaborate, like create a cornice and some swags and things like that. But I'm pretty partial to cafe curtains in kitchens. And in this instance, I'm only going to use the bottom part. I'm not going to do the top tier valance. So now that I've added my glue, let's go install these in Miss Betty's new kitchen. So really quick, let me remove some of the things from the kitchen because I don't want to get glue on anything while I'm trying to reach over them to install the curtains. Now in this frame, you can clearly see that I removed the icebox. I'm not sure why I didn't remove the stove, but I did forge ahead with my curtain panel to install it in that front window, which is like the back of the kitchen. And I just kind of held it there a couple seconds. Now, after I put it in, I realized I wanted it to line up with the bead board, so I did have to make a couple adjustments, but it's really nice when the tacky glue is slightly dry because it catches a little bit faster than when it's really wet. And try not to use too much because you don't want it to be running or dripping on your floor. So here I am moving the stove so I can get to that other window. And at this stage, I'm really getting excited about adding all the accessories. Now I want you to take note that this is one single panel going across the bottom of the window, just like I did in the one on the back. So there's glue on the sides because you don't need it all the way across like I did the first one. You really just need it on the parts that are going to adhere to the window frame. And you can kind of see from this angle that I put it on the window frame and then I adjusted it a bit so that the hem of the curtain will line up with the top of the bead board. But I had to be careful not to go too high to expose the bottom of the window frame. Now you definitely can make more than one panel and you can make the top cafe tier. I didn't want to do that because I really wanted to expose the top part of these windows because I made these windows custom just for this house and I have other ideas about what I want to do with the tops. Okay, so now let me adjust the camera so you can see it from eye level. Now I really like how the curtains liven up the wall because that wallpaper is a little bit bland, but I feel like it pulls together the look of the beadboard. So let me go ahead and put the stove back in here and show you dolls a couple pieces that I've made specifically for this space. Now these are some little prints that I created out of some fabric print and I kind of aged them to make them look old because I want to make it as a part of the story that they're almost like antiques and they belong to Miss Betty's grandmother. I've got a couple lovely treasures from my precious dolls. Now this was a gifted piece. It's a basket of lovely eggs. I'm going to sit that right on the edge of the sink there. And now I'm putting that little cabinet in just to see how it fits. I really like the height of it to be right next to the stove. I like that to kind of be as a work area or transfer station for the stove. So now that I have the stove and the icebox in their rightful spaces and that little cabinet I'm considering, now I'm turning my attention to that area right next to the icebox. And here's that little table that I told you about in the beginning of the video that I stained. And I really love the shape, the color, and the height. But it's a little bit long because it's blocking the doorway. So I'm really feeling like I'm going to have to do a custom table or unit for that space. So this is one of the main reasons why I try to teach you dolls how to create your own pieces, because sometimes what you need doesn't exist. You just have to create it. And again, I'm just pulling the camera back just so I can see how things look. I really like the height of that table and where it sits. You can still see the bottom of the curtain, and yeah, I think that height is perfect. It just needs to be a little bit shorter, so I actually may use it as a template and just adjust the length. Now one part of me was thinking maybe I could just modify this one, but I feel like the wood is kind of thick, but it's kind of fragile. It may crack or split if I try to cut off that third drawer and remove the top and all of that, so I'm going to just save it for another project. So let me show you a couple of my other accessories that I have set aside for this project. Now these are Pop's boots. I've got them kind of sitting under the sink because there are always men's boots in the kitchen for some reason. And here is a lovely fly swatter that was gifted to me by one of my precious dolls. Isn't that adorable? She gave me two of them. I actually have one in Aunt Janie and Aunt Bess's house. And I'm going to save this one to put in here. I think I want it over here on this wall so you can see it as soon as you look inside the dollhouse. So let me leave this here and show you the other curtains I made while I was at it. Now this is the same technique that I used for the curtains that I made for Miss Betty's house, and you can see it's slightly different because I have the top and the bottom valance, and I'm making this for the dress shop dollhouse kitchen. Now I'm not going to go through the whole process in this image. I was just letting you see what I was doing here and that this set was different from the ones that I made and just installed in Miss Betty and Pop's new kitchen. So let me show you what it looks like after they're installed. Now here I am in the dress shop dollhouse kitchen, and you can clearly see this has the top valance and the lower one, so you can see the lower one I made a little shorter because I wanted to expose a little bit more of the window opening. Now here I have a tiny cutting board with some slab bacon on it, so I'm going to put it back on the edge of the sink. And I just want to zoom in a little bit because I want you to see how nicely the tiny print on the curtain really does blend and coordinate with the wallpaper that's on the wall. So dolls, I don't want you to be afraid of mixing prints. It's okay. I actually prefer that look because I really don't like things to look sterile. Now, if you would like to see the full video of when I set up this kitchen, I will leave a link in the description. Oh, dolls, look, there's the other fly swatter right there next to the window. So, dolls, let's get back to the table so I can show you what else I did. So since I'm considering making a table, a custom table for next to the icebox, I figure I should go ahead and get this little cabinet out of the way. Now, although I love the shape and the style, I really want to change the color because the yellow doesn't give me the vintage vibe that I'm looking for. Now, this adorable little cabinet was gifted to me, but it appeared to be removed from some other project just because of the remnants on the back. Now, I originally started to paint it a dark green, but I think the dark brown will work better as an undertone when I age it. And after I do one thin even coat of the dark brown, I'm going to go over it with a light green. Now you can see in this frame I've already painted it light green, and I'm thinking about options for the top of the cabinet because it doesn't have a counter. So I was considering making something to look sort of like a butcher block. Now these are some remnant pieces of coffee stir sticks, some that are stained and some that are not. Now although I'm playing with the idea, I'm still going to have to even them out. And you see I didn't bother to paint the top because I'm going to be adding glue and covering it. Now, dolls, as you know, I don't like to measure, so I've cut my pieces reasonably straight, and after I get them aligned and glued to the top of the little cabinet, I'll sand it the rest of the way. Now, dolls, I was pleasantly surprised that I got the pieces a lot straighter than I thought I would. And in this frame, I'm adding an ample amount of glue to the top surface of the little cabinet, but not so much that it'll ooze up between the pieces because I haven't decided whether I wanted to add additional stain or not yet. Now for this project, you definitely could have used a template and glued it to a piece of paper and glued the whole thing to the surface of the cabinet, but I preferred to add these individually. And dolls, kind of as a rule, I generally use my templates for larger projects, sort of like beadboard installation or floors. Now I'm really being mindful to line these up so they'll be even and so that they won't hang over too much on the edge because I have something else I want to do to that front part. And I have to be careful because I don't want to make things so tight that I won't be able to open the drawer. And you dolls can see in this frame that I'm using my handy little hand sander, and it really is convenient to use for small projects like this. So now that I've added all my coffee stir sticks to the majority of the top of the little counter, I want to show you what's going on the edge of this lip. So here I'm kind of zooming the camera in. You could see there's a space there that really needs to be covered so it won't look bare or awkward when I push the drawer in. So I'm adding another little coffee stir stick, and this one is slightly smaller or narrower than the ones that I was using for the majority. Now you could clearly see that that lip was way smaller than my coffee stir stick. Now after I trim the edge of this off, I'm going to add another piece to ensure that it stays stable. Now from this angle you can see that that front piece is narrower than the other pieces. and I'm just pressing it to make sure it sticks nice and flat. And you see I have the drawer slightly open as well because I don't want my drawer to get stuck. Now this is a piece that I stained to be my stabilizer, and I'm going to run it not only across the lip of the cabinet but all the way around the sides to give the impression that it's a solid butcher block rather than flat sticks. So at this point I pulled the drawer out because I was confident that I was clearing everything with my stabilizer piece, and you can see how I added it all the way around. Now you want to give this part an opportunity to dry and be solid before you work on it anymore. So while that's drying, I'm going to kind of fill in the hole, the original hole that was put on the drawer because it wasn't centered, and I created my own hole where I'm going to add my drawer pull. Now for my drawer pull, I'm just using a tiny brass nail, and again I closed up the original hole and created my own, and now I'm just pressing it in, and I did put a little dab of glue on the point, which will help ensure that your drawer pull stays in place. And at this point I had pushed it in a little bit too far, so I had to lift it out a little bit. And after I got it to the proper position, I set it down to allow it to dry. So let's go back and check on this countertop. And here I'm just trying out my drawer. Now if you find that your drawer is a little bit tight, you can just sand it wherever you feel the tightness so that your drawer opens smoothly and the dowels don't have to struggle. Now at this point my little cabinet is essentially complete. I really like the way it looks. I'm probably going to rub out the top a little bit. My drawer fits really nice, and the drawer pull is dry, so I'm able to move it really freely. Now I do want to darken and age the sides of my little faux butcher block, but I am going to sand it a little bit more just to make sure everything looks level, because I wanted to make it look like one solid piece rather than a glued on add-on, and aging is really going to help with that. Now the coffee stir sticks were already previously stained, but to age it I'm just using a stain pen, and I'm just going to draw it right along the edge just to give it a little color. And I'm also going to sand it down a little bit so the color won't look so intense. And you see here I've done the same thing all the way around, and making sure to sand right after I add the stain. Now after I was done adding the stain around the edges or the perimeter and buffing it out, I started to sand the entire surface all the way around to make sure it was really buttery smooth and no snags or drags on it. So at this point I'm really happy with my little cabinet, and I really should have dealt with the back of the cabinet in the beginning, but I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I know I don't want to add any thickness. So instead of using wood or cardboard to close up the back of the cabinet, I'm going to just use a nice firm piece of brown paper bag. Now in order to get full adhesion, I am going to use my little handy sander to remove some of the remnants and debris of the previous glue and paper. Now for this part of the project, I did swap out and put on a coarser grade of the sandpaper to do this. And you can see from this frame that it removed the majority of the debris, and now I'm adding an ample amount of glue so I can add my paper. And dowels in a case like this, I think brown paper bag was a perfect option because you don't want to add thickness to the back of your piece because it'll push your piece away from the wall and take up floor space. I did want to add an extra little detail. Now I'm adding a little clump of black matte acrylic paint to the tip of the drawer pull and the cabinet knob, because I didn't want it to be brassy, shiny, or looking too modern. And when I thought the acrylic paint was dry, I added an ample coat of Dimensional Magic to the entire knob to cover up the black to give it kind of the look of enamel. So dolls, I hope this portion of the video serves as an example of what you can do with a second-hand, broken, or salvaged piece. Many times we overlook pieces that didn't work out in another project. You don't always have to buy something new if you can just re-envision what you already have, if you can just train your eye to see value in things that have been discarded. There are precious gems waiting to be found among the scraps and the remnants. And always remember, before you plan, allow yourself some time to play. Now, dolls, I am going to do some additional aging to this, but I'm going to wait till after I make the table. So let's go try this completed piece inside the house. Now, dolls, here we are back where we first started in Pop and Miss Betty's new kitchen. And that piece fits perfect, and I really think that butcher block top really makes it stand out in a way that it makes it noticeable, but it's not screaming. Now, dolls, if this is your first time watching and you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe, and always look for me on Mondays after 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I sure would like to know what you like most about this video in the comments. And I want to say a quick thank you to those of you all who have been shopping on Little Gretchen's Workshop on eBay. And I appreciate you for letting me know that you're enjoying your tiny treasures. And I'm really working hard to keep the shelves stocked. So let me get back to my table because I have tons of things to complete. So until next time, I'm looking forward to seeing you all right here on Little Gretchen's Workshop. Bye-bye now, dolls.